President Trump has announced plans for yet another summit with Vladimir Putin, which means the other one maybe didn't go as well as he said. This time in Budapest, Hungary, to discuss how to end the war in Ukraine. Yesterday, he hinted at a possibility of a double meeting where he'd meet with Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky separately.
I would say most likely it's going to be a double meeting. It'll be a double meeting, but we will have the President, Zelensky, in touch. There's a lot of bad blood with the two presidents, and I'm not speaking out of turn when I say it. It's a very difficult situation.
Yeah, this comes as Trump met with the Ukrainian president on Friday to discuss Ukraine's request for long-range missiles, which he had previously been considering. But as the Washington Post notes, quote, he shifted his tone Friday after speaking with Putin Thursday, the latest whipsaw in months of diplomacy that have seen Trump's mood shift from sympathy to frustration with each side. In an interview on Meet the Press, Zelensky says he actually still has hope that the U.S. will provide Ukraine with Tomahawk missiles.
It's good that President Trump didn't say no, but for today didn't say yes.
Do you think President Trump changed his tone about Tomahawk missiles after speaking with President Putin?
I don't know really, because we didn't meet before this phone call. But for today, it's good again that he didn't say no.
The bar's on the floor. Joining us now, Richard Haass. He's the President Emeritus for the Council on Foreign Relations and author of the Substack newsletter Home and Away. Sir, thank you very much for joining us this morning to talk about this. One of the things I can't let go is that you have the President of the United States talking about Tomahawk missiles with our ally Ukraine. But then the President calls the President of Russia, who's not supposed to be an ally, and says, hey, are you okay with me sending these Tomahawk missiles to the guy that you invaded? It is a complete, and I mean, I guess I should not be surprised, but it is a complete upending of the way that diplomacy has ever happened, even for Trump, really, going to the bad guy first and then going and having a meeting with Zelensky.
Well, the bigger problem is it isn't working.
Yeah.
President Trump rightly is pressing for a diplomatic breakthrough, for peace with Ukraine. I applaud him for that. The problem is his own policy or his own behavior is undermining that goal. If you want to get peace, the biggest single thing is to give Ukraine the support it needs to bring about a ceasefire, to sustain a ceasefire. So Mr. Putin comes to the conclusion, however reluctant, that time is not on his side, that more war will not give him more territory. Until we do that, quite honestly, all these calls, all these meetings will amount for naught.
If, in fact, the reporting is true that Trump has not been swayed by that meeting yesterday to provide Ukraine with more missiles and more weapons that Zelensky has long argued is necessary in order to negotiate with Russia so that they feel some sort of military threat, what does that mean for the state of negotiations?
The most likely thing is that the war continues. Look, the war's going on. This phase of the war is, what, 3.5 years? Yeah. This fighting season is about to end. Unless we give Ukraine, I would argue, decisive support, not just now, but for the future, for the foreseeable future and then some, I think the war continues because Putin's got this larger economy. It's on a wartime footing. He's got 3.5 times the population. So he has no incentive to end things. So we want to avoid not helping Ukraine, we'll put more positively, we want to help Ukraine, and we want to avoid the kind of territorial transfers that the president was talking about after Alaska. We want a clean ceasefire. We want to make it simple. Look, quite honestly, Tomahawks are not the game changer. We could argue it's Tomahawks or this weapon system or that system the United States or Europe provides. What Ukraine needs is enough intelligence and military support, again, to send a clear message. Vladimir Putin cannot prevail no matter what he does.
Richard, this is, as Eugene said in the intro, this is the second summit in I don't know how many months since the Alaska summit. And they're going to Hungary, where Viktor Orban is not exactly a paragon of small d democratic values. But when the White House was asked, why Hungary? Let me just put up, because the Huffington Post asked the White House, who picked Budapest? And here's what the White House press secretary said. She responded minutes later with, "Your mom did."
You're just bringing this up so you can make a your mom joke.
No, but I mean, come on. And then the White House communications director, Stephen Chung, after a minute, added the far more succinct, "Your mom." Okay, it's yo mama, to be exact.
Yo, Y-O, no you.
Yo, yeah,
If you
yo
don't
mama.
do it
I
right.
mean, I'm laughing at this because this is not the language that should be coming out of the White House, one. And two, this is not how you talk about something as important as war and peace, or the potential of war and peace. Just your reaction to the White House, senior White House officials. Just go ahead, Richard.
It's not exactly my experience when I worked at the White House for George H.W. Bush. I'll put it that way. Look, I think it also, there's a serious thing underneath this. If you're Vladimir Putin, with all sorts of warrants out for you for war crimes and the like, there's very few places you can travel, quote unquote, safely. Hungary, which is sympathetic towards Russia, is one of the very few.
You know, Richard, thank you for bringing a serious point to my
Jonathan, you got me out of bed here this morning.
It's true.
Oh, come on, we know where you're going after this.
I want to move to Venezuela. I don't mean not physically. I like it here.
Maybe not now.
No, yeah, not right now.
Wait till after the change.
But when it comes to what we are doing there, right? The President of the United States has directed at least 5 or 6 multiple different types of attacks on boats that he claims are bringing drugs into the United States. Venezuela is not exactly the the drug capital of the world, and fentanyl is not what is coming from them, which is what folks are really worried about here. But when I talk to experts about that and about what the president did with this CIA covert operation, the idea that he might strike within Venezuela, they say it's not about drugs. They say that they feel like it is about regime change. He talked about regime change in the first Trump administration with Maduro. He's not a fan of Maduro. Is this about regime change? And that seems completely out of touch with the MAGA movement and the America First movement.
You don't have 10,000 U.S. troops in a neighborhood to go after a couple of boats.
Yeah.
This is about regime change, which, by the way, I think is potentially a good thing, given how Maduro has run Venezuela into the ground, how he stole an election, and the rest.
So when we get involved in Latin America, it doesn't always turn out that.
That's why I said in principle.
Yeah.
This is there's a complicated backstory.
Yeah.
So we've got to be really careful. It's one thing to oust a regime, and we could probably deal with Maduro some version of how we dealt with Noriega in Panama, but it's something very different once you've ousted a regime to successfully midwife the emergence of an enduring, more positive regime. Lots of things have to happen politically, economically. A lot of signals have to be sent. A lot of preparations have to be made. I would argue it also ought not to be done unilaterally. We ought to try to find others in the hemisphere to work with us. So in principle, I think the people of Venezuela could be far better off under an alternative leadership, but like everything else in life, it depends how you do it and what it leads to.
I have so many follow-up questions on Venezuela, Richard, but we do not have any time. So Richard Haass, thank you very much for coming back to The Weekend.